I don't like social media. I don't like the environment that it has bred. And you're kind of boiled down to, this whole personality of who you are and everything sort of boiled down to 30 seconds. We all want to be witnessed in some way. Not like Mad Max Fury Road, like witness me or something like that. It'd be really cool if you get some of your style on the song and everything of the sort. The kind of question is like, are you sure? Like, is this really what you want? It was a really cool, a very streamlined experience, I would say. I sat down, put my parts on the song, and he liked it immediately. All the guitars you hear on the song are me. I've dreamt on being on Coke Studio as a kid. Ever since, I heard Madari, I got this email in my inbox. This is not spam, do not delete. So I was like, ding, 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 like as if like a train is chugging along. So I'm like, what is this? What's going on? And then we look over the mountains and there's this like bright light coming through and we're like 5 minutes later, the moon rises. It was pitch black. It's quite silly to always feel like you're blowing your own horn.
Hello everyone, this is Ruben and welcome to Signcast, the podcast for sinusoidal music where we get to speak to amazing musicians, and we have with us today Dhruv Visvanath, one of the best indie singer-songwriters from the country. Welcome Dhruv.
Thank you so much, Ruben. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us here.
No, of course.
And you're playing a show on Friday.
Yeah.
And that's why we have you here.
At the time of this recording, yes.
Exactly, at the time of this recording.
Yeah.
So you had a very nice warm video of your family roots in Bangalore. A proverbial question I would sneak in about Bangalore traffic. So hope it was not too bad.
It was horrible. Yeah. It's been horrible ever since.
Right.
To be honest, I think one of those perennial things, right? You just kind of put it aside and you think like, okay, Bangalore already comes with this, so you have to look at the other good parts. That exist
But
within the city.
as bad as the Delhi traffic, huh?
No, Delhi traffic is great.
Is Drake in comparison?
It's like
heaven.
I think it's like the best in the country when you look at like driving through. But that being said, I think like there's, like I said, a city comes with certain things. Like, Bombay has its own characteristics. Delhi, Calcutta, Hyderabad, all these places, and I've spent a lot of time in all of these places, and there's a different charm here. And traffic is just a consequence of how the city was made. It's not exactly why it exists. But yeah, I love this place. It has a different meaning to it.
Right, especially in your music though, there's a lot of stuff about memories, right? You put your memories, your life story itself into the narrative of your music.
I kind of think of it in a very autobiographical manner, and which might make it seem very, I guess, inaccessible to a lot of people, in the sense that because I'm writing from my own perspective and what I experienced as a child, and and all my memories, positive or negative or anything of the sort. So trying to think on that sort of autobiographical sort of like story of sorts and all that, I think it's really important anyway, at some level to be able to tell the story of your life. I'm a big believer in the fact that in life, and I think of this is true with any relationship, any person, any aspect of your life that you live in, that we all want to be witnessed in some way. Not like Mad Max Fury Road, like witness me or something like that, but more like at some level we all want to be seen, and we all want our story acknowledged. We all want that, and I think that's true for me as well. Like when you're writing a story, when you're putting something together, at some level there's some part of you that wants to be seen in the process of what you're.
For that matter, I think when you were talking about marketing your music, or how long are you going to keep blowing your own horn?
Yeah. That's quite exhausting, really.
Right.
Because if I'm like being truly honest, I don't like social media. I don't like the environment that it has bred, where your worth is spent on kind of seeing how much attention you can grab on somebody else's feeds, whatever it is, and you're kind of boiled down to this whole personality of who you are and everything sort of boiled down to 30 seconds.
Exactly.
And so how often can you repeat those 30 seconds? How often can you try and find a new story to tell in those 30 seconds? And which is why so often when you're like doom scrolling in the middle of the night and everything of the sort, you'll find people saying like, make your to try and find ways to regurgitate things so other people can consume it and continue that habit and everything. And so I find it quite meaningless to to constantly keep looking at it as a tool for something greater, if at the end of the day it's all become this vehicle for just temporary success. I think there is a spot in how it exists to make it all meaningful and everything, but yeah, I just think that what it has evolved into, and what it makes people feel, it's very damaging. It fosters a lot of negative thinking rather than some positive reinforcement, and in that positivity lasts for in my thing perception, it lasts for a short time. This dopamine rush that you get and everything. So I feel like, yeah, it's quite silly to always feel like you're blowing your own horn,
Right.
or you can do it, but how often,
Right.
does that message going to get
Right.
through? And so you don't want to feel like you're screaming into some void or anything of the sort. You just want to make music.
Right.
You just want to kind of be yourself and feel authentic. And maybe I've got this all wrong. It's just how I see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But for that matter, though, you managed to have some very nice, funny, short posts and some absurdist comedy. Laughing
yeah.
when
That's
you
exactly.
put yourself
That's
out
me.
there. Yeah.
Absurdist. No.
Right. Right. But speaking of achievements or the image or putting yourself out there, I mean, one of your, when I got introduced to your music, and then one fine day,
In 2020.
yeah, sadly for me, but I was quite glad to see that. Okay, there's this big viral hit. Khalasi on Coke Studio, where okay, there's Dhruv Viswanath right there. So how was that experience, if you could tell? Yeah.
So Achint, the guy who produced the song, I've been listening to his stuff for years, and my brother is a big fan of his as well. And so I remember at the time, I think Spotify hadn't come into the country, so Apple Music was the only streaming service. It was about 2015 or so. And Achint's album was one of the first on the service, and Tandav, I think that was what the album was, and we used to listen to it like left, right, all everywhere. Every time we'd sit in a car, drive to some place, and everything of the sort. When he reached out to me to say like, "Hey, listen, it'd be really cool if you get some of your style on the song and everything of the sort," I was I kind of questioned. I was like, "Are you sure? Like, is this really what you want? Is this you want this thing?" Yeah. But lo and behold, he sends me the song, and I thought it was fantastic. Like when I listened to it, like in the demo of it was so cool. I was like, here I am sitting sitting like across the phone with a dude like who's made some of, I think, some so much seminal music now over the last 4 or 5 years and everything of the sort, and I think he had just done it again. And so in the process of just getting to sit down, I recorded most of the guitars and all that. In fact, all the guitars you hear on the song are me. And then on the filming of the video and everything of the sort, we got maybe Saurabh and Achint. Saurabh from the Light Years Explode, and Achint to sort of play some of it on the filming and everything of the sort. But it was a really cool and a very streamlined experience, I would say. I sat down, put my parts on the song, and he liked it immediately. He said like, "Okay, cool. We just have one change. Just re-record it so it fits that change." Boom, it was done. And then came the fact of like, okay, cool. Now you have to put all this stuff that you also put together and perform it live, right, so that people can watch it. Right. So I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And I did the whole thing in like all these takes and everything. I was so tired, but it was really, really cool. I think I'm really grateful for the experience. I've dreamt on being on Coke Studio as a kid. Ever since I heard Madari and finding Clinton Cerejo and Amit Trivedi and Salim Suleiman and everything of the sort, and all these fantastic composers. And yeah, it was my dream to be on Coke Studio. Now my dream is to actually have one of my songs on there. Right. Yeah, I think hope that time will come.
Yeah, inshallah it will come. And so a substantial part of the percussion on the song is you, right?
So
and there's Arifa who is also handling percussion.
Yeah, but I think actually a lot of the percussion, at least on the song, was produced. Right. So it kind of comes off. One can get the impression that it's coming off a lot of various instruments and things like that. But I think Achint did a good job of trying to blend lots of elements together. So I wouldn't say it's just me. I wouldn't say it's just the other elements that you see on the video or anything of the sort. But there are definitely things that he has borrowed from multiple things to kind of get that But if you listen to his music in general, you'll notice like a pattern on how he does his percussion and everything of the sort. So this is actually just a little distance from it. In fact, what makes this song unique is not the fact, it's not the percussion or anything of the sort. In fact, it's nothing that I do. It's the fact that Gujarati music has had like a trend of monotony and like very major sounding tones and everything of the sort. And this is one song that kind of felt like it flipped the script and revolutionized what Gujarati music could be. Which is exactly why it became so popular. And I had no hand in doing that. It was literally, you need to really take into account the genius of Achint in that moment. And Aditya's Gadvi's performance was stunning, like, and his voice as well. Having those two elements kind of meet together, it was literally like, like worlds colliding. It was it was perfect. And I'm just glad I was a witness to that moment rather than, anything greater or smaller. So
I think one question which I wanted to ask was generally what I see is that a lot of independent musicians, they're involved in the industry. They're playing live sessions for major artists, and then after some years they have left their independent music away, and because they have to keep working, touring live with the musicians. So
I think it's a question of sustainability, because at some point, look, everybody goes in with the agenda to say like, I'm going to stamp my authority and my identity on this particular space and I'm going to make it my own. And then what you realize is that every time you scaffold that space, it requires new strength, it requires new resources, it requires new abilities. Think of it like playing Age of Empires or something like that, or like a Civilization. I love playing Civilization. Everything costs resources to maintain. And so suddenly when you start like kind of adding more pieces to the puzzle, you're realizing that at some level you're going to have to make sure that you have that sustainability, and life also gets in the way. And this is not to say that nobody should actually continue down the path of be the independent artist. This is that leads you down a path where you learn to work with others, you learn how to create structure in your life. There's lots of things in which it pays off. What has ended up happening as a consequence of many new things entering the environment and the industry of how we make music and everything, there is a transactional element of how we treat each other and how we treat our creativity and how we treat our art. And so when you're an independent artist, you think that the simple transaction will be like, you take 3 minutes, give me 3 minutes of your time and I want to make you listen to something. And that value has increased massively because there's so many more people who want that same transaction to happen. And so now it's come to a point where like, okay, how many voices do get that attention? So I want to be a part of those voices. So then you find people going towards an industry's point where they work with other bigger musicians, where they become session players, where they produce and everything of the sort. Now I'm also a victim of that. I think it's been necessary, because when you grow in any career, you want to be able to make sure that your skills are used to the maximum. So, at some point you also want to feel like you're growing. So I think it's two ways. One, it's sustainable, which I explained. But the second thing is also like a matter of personal growth and career development. And the more seriously you take your job, and as a musician, at some level, like you do want some structure in your life and everything of the sort. And these places offer an opportunity of structure, skill improvement, working in a team and everything. So if I were to break it down into corporate speak or anything of the sort, it really works well that way. And you want the ability to work with more people. You want the ability to sort of be dependable. You want this ability to, be able to deliver in so many new and different ways. And I think like the moment you start to get into a space where you have the ability to sort of take on someone else's personality and put it as yours and everything, it really does help with, so many more things other than just being a creative and, and this independent artist kind of person. And so it allows you to find new joy in certain things. I'll say that like, it really allows you to also get seen in a different way, which is why I would say like Warren, for example, like, as great as Blackstrat blues are, sometimes when you hear him with like Amit Trivedi, when you hear him with like all these other huge Bollywood acts and everything, when you hear him on like records and everything of the sort, the personality also still seeps through. And, he's still Warren outside of it. So there's not much of a difference. Yeah, that's probably the way I look at it.
Right. So when I asked, Warren, what does he feel about working in films? He's like, I do my part. I mean, generally when I hear those parts, okay, yeah, I can hear something of Warren in his. For that matter, when you worked in your film work or your session work, I mean, you worked with Vishal Bharadwaj with AR Rahman. You started as a session musician, right?
No,
First.
actually, I started as an independent artist, and then I kind of also entered it. But yeah, I also just walk in and do my part when it comes to it. Like, somebody asks me to play something a certain way, I do it.
Right.
It depends on how the characteristics of things are, if people ask for things.
Right, but almost I think 14 years back, I think you had I think one of your popular cover videos was "In the Air Tonight."
Yeah.
And
oh God.
yeah, but it was a nice video. I think you can see the that energy, that spark.
I think I filmed it on my phone.
Yeah,
back then.
Which is so nice to see.
Yeah.
But for that matter, I think over the years, then you became a session artist. For that matter, now I think recently you worked on the Tamil film Por, Hindi bilingual with Bejoy, right?
Yeah.
So as a session artist to having a song on a mainstream big film, how was that? Nanpagam Meram. You worked with Nanpagal Neram. Yeah, which I really enjoyed, and I know, okay, this is a Dhruv song on a mainstream movie. Yeah.
Again, like I kind of look at it as a way by which, like, what is my value and my heart. What does it want to say? In fact, I wrote 3 versions of the song. So one in English, then I wrote with somebody in Hindi, and then wrote with somebody in Tamil.
Yeah.
And so what I did was, because I knew how to write, and because I write in English well enough, my Hindi sucks, and my Tamil, I don't even know a word. But I wrote the song in English, and then I just sent it across to, I worked with these lyricists, Vishwadeep and Shrikant. Vignesh Shrikant, I think his name is, yeah. And, kind of had them sort of co-opt what I had written in English and then turn it into Tamil. But it was really easy to, think of something that was, that fit the vibe of it. In fact, the director liked one of my other songs, and he says, like, I want something just like this.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, yeah, cool, I can just do that. Right. And it worked well. It felt very easy. It wasn't so much of a challenge to try and represent myself well. The things where it starts getting more challenging is more on a feedback and a technical level, when you start to get granular and everything of the sort. But when you're making something like that, you're putting a lot of heart and soul into it and everything of the sort. It's still your song. It has your name on it.
Right, exactly.
You've sung it, or you've written it, or you've produced it, or something like that. It's still yours. So that doesn't change. It's just the stage it gets to perform at, like on a film or something like that, where it gets to appear in the scene and everything. That's probably the most important part.
For that matter, I mean, yeah, there's films, session work, your own independent music, and then recently you had the opportunity to appear on the Apple TV show My Kind of Country. For that matter, I think a lot of independent musicians, I have not heard of them appearing on a show in the West. So how did that opportunity come about? And how was the whole experience? Were you shooting substantially for a year or something for that?
Oh, no. It was a very short filming cycle. I think we shot for about 6 weeks. And it's reality. So, like, it was 8-9 episodes or something like that, if I remember correctly. But basically, it was just like somebody, I got this email in my inbox. And then on top, in bright red letters on the email, it says, "This is not spam, do not delete." And then suddenly there's this whole thing of like, oh, there's this thing we want you to be a part of. So like maybe like 40-50 Zoom calls later, I'm on this show, and I didn't get to know about, so the show filmed in 2022. I didn't get to know I was going to be on the show about 3 months before filming. And so the moment it happened and everything of the sort, it was wild. Like, it was suddenly things just started picking up. Okay, cool. We'll list these songs. We'll do this. I remember being on Zoom calls, like, with the first song, we can have some Indian elements, like a sitar. And I was like, nah. I'm not that kind of dude, man. I'm not that kind of dude. So I said, no, we're going to play it. We're going to make it fun, and it's going to be simple. And and then by the time I actually got on to perform in the episodes and everything, I realized, in fact, the whole experience and everything, I spent 6 weeks in Nashville, pretty much filming like an episode a week or something like that, and it was incredible, like just getting to meet the musicians and meet the judges, meet, all sorts of people from all walks of life. And, just after a while, you really, because you're just isolated in a space like that, you're kept sequestered and all that, you make really good friends with people and all that and stuff. So it's really nice.
Right. And of course, you played your own originals, right?
Yeah.
Though you played, I know the Dear Madeline also. I
Yes,
think you
yes,
played,
yes.
and then but you also had some nice cover. You had a really cool cover of Bad Girl and
Yeah.
all of that, which I really loved more than
man.
the original. Maybe I could say. Yeah, I mean,
Oh man, can you help me get Billie Eilish to see it? I mean, like that would be fantastic. No.
right.
But yeah, the thing is, that wasn't the only cover. There was more.
You
Like
did a Taylor Swift cover also.
I did a Taylor Swift cover. I did a Johnny Cash cover. Yeah, and I did a Brooks and Dunn cover.
Right.
Brooks and Dunn I had never heard of before until I reached there. And there's a song Neon Moon, and a lot of these. Basically, I had given a list of maybe 20, 30 songs that I could do covers. And one of them was like Sunflower by Post Malone. There was like Heat Wave by Glass Animals to make a country version of that.
Oh, nice.
So there were lots of different songs that were there, and I had made versions and all that and stuff. But when somebody said like, okay, we have so and so many options, which one would you like? I said I can't remember the other one, but I picked Bad Guy, and I was like, cool, let's do this.
Right.
And so my thinking was, I need to think of a great train robbery of sorts. The way I thought of the song was like, what if there were like demons chasing down and stealing things of people on a train or something? So I have to make it feel like that.
Right.
So I was like, ding, 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 ding,
Wow.
ding, ding, ding. So I kind of thought of the movement like that, like as if like a train is chugging along. And so that was the entire thought process. I did mention something about that on the video in the,
Right.
but it just can't, I think they cut it out. But it was fantastic. It was really cool. It was a really cool experience. Yeah. In fact, that particular episode, we all had to make these stages and setups. So if you're watching it or anything of the sort, at the back, it's all like this greenery and everything. But it was really refreshing. I actually haven't played it live since that taping. So.
Oh, okay. Right. Maybe for that matter, right? Or your music. Just now you gave a nice explain. You do visualize your music, is it? Before you want to like compose it in a particular manner.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's really important because I don't know whether I have synesthesia or not, but I have this like visual way of thinking. I see colors, I see patterns in visually before I actually make the music. So like for me, things feel very, it feels less analytical, but the way I feel is very like almost like thinking of things parallelly to what's going on.
Right.
And so like I get this visual identity in my mind first. So for a lot of these times and a lot of the songs that I write, everything is kind of a film. I think of it like a movie first, and what's the song that goes with that movie. And so that's exactly how I like to try and make it.
Right. For that matter, I think one of the questions was, how do you write such brilliant songs? I mean, yeah, the first thing I think of, Dhruv Visvanath is a brilliant songwriter.
Thanks.
And I think you have described your songwriting process as building Legos, or the first 10 seconds of a song, which
that's what I try and teach people when they're trying to write songs and everything, is that a song idea does not have to be a full thing, but you have to look at it like bricks of Lego. Like you can have a 10-second idea, and if you, in fact, the easiest way to do it is like think of a line. And the line has an infinite end on either side. You don't know how far it will go one way, how far it goes before it. But if you take one spot in the line and you make that, and that's probably like a little idea, like a small riff or small hum or anything of the sort. All you have to do is think about how you go ahead of it and how you go behind it. The Lego idea comes from when you start to build vertically, which is when you're visually building it. And this is when you're using like a piece of software, like Logic or Ableton or whatever and things like that. Like I use Logic, and because you can color the tracks and everything, all Lego bricks are different colors and everything. It's all about like how different layers stack on each other to make the most of that length. And so it's more to make it seem more visually appealing for somebody, easy to understand. It's literally you just take the line, you're breaking 1 second here and there or 10 seconds here, and you're just figuring out, okay, what comes after it and what comes before it. And slowly you just build it up until you have your song like that.
Right.
And that's pretty much it.
Right. For that matter, I really love your harmonies on your songs.
Thanks.
And the kind of layering, right? Vocals or guitars.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah. So how is your approach to that in general?
I'm pretty noob. Like once I saw Jacob Collier do all that stuff, I was like, okay, calm down. But it's pretty, how do I say this? Like, I grew up singing in choirs.
Oh, okay.
So when I was in Hong Kong, I grew up in Hong Kong a little bit. And like I was in a English Schools Foundation choir, and we sang like versions of like Danny Boy and like, all these like Latin kind of choir elements. And then I would sing in choirs for like school programs and everything of the sort. So, and I was a tenor, and so you'd always learn how to sort of sit in between a harmony. You're never really singing the lead harmony. So it made it very easy to think about, okay, how do I build the layers beneath that? And so you have one lead layer, and then I'm like, okay, cool. If I was a synthesizer, how would I sound like a synthesizer? Like, what is the thing? So the whole thing is, to make things sound thick and rich. And I've never been truly very confident in my own singing voice. So I always think like, okay, if I add harmonies, it just brings like more color and more tone and more emphasis into what I'm trying to bring across.
Right. So following on that, I think I had one question about your singing, and then further on about your music in general. But first, I'll come to the singing. I think I'd messaged you saying, okay, there's something similar to Suraj Mani's tone, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, thanks for that. He's a friend. But you had also mentioned that when you started out, you were doing your percussion, like back then. Your percussion fingers, and then you're like, okay, people are not paying attention in the pub or whatever, and then you started singing.
Correct.
So, but for that matter, how was the process of learning vocals or the songwriting process itself from just being a guitarist?
So I taught myself how to play the guitar. So I figured like if I could teach myself how to play the guitar, I could definitely teach myself how to sing. And thankfully enough, like because of the fact that I had this like some training in a choir or something like that, it felt easy. I didn't really have to put too much. What the problem was that I had set myself down this path like, oh, I have to spank every guitar I play, so I have to sing while I do that. So at the same time, I'm trying to do all these different things and breathe and all this and stuff. And then somehow you're put into this corner where you're like, oh God, what journey have I set myself on? That in itself was like refreshing, because I knew that when I would do both those elements together, it was enough to silence a room and have people pay attention. I'd like to think that kind of paved the way for a lot of people to want to try and explore that kind of playing. And there was Benny Prasad, who was an Indian guitarist who used to travel around the world. He was like, he had the thickest passport or something like that. He traveled to like 200 something countries in 1 year. And he was this one guy who had this percussive ability, and he was the only Indian. And I was like, there should be more people like this as well. And I wasn't volunteering myself. I was just like, I just want to play in the way that feels natural. And so when it came to starting to sing and everything of the sort, it was just one of those things where I started slowly like kind of writing my own music with simpler percussive elements into it. And one gig that comes to mind was there was a singer, Shashank Bhatnagar.
Right. Okay.
What is the band he plays in?
Undying. Now he's playing for Inner
Undying,
Sanctum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Undying and Inner Sanctum. So he used to own a cafe in opposite Venki College in Delhi, called Underground Cafe, and it was like this long room, like maybe like this or something like that. And every now and then he would get some artists to come and play. So I played there 2 or 3 times, and first time I went, I played just my instrumental music, and I had these CDs and my EP and everything. Everybody who was in the cafe was like, whatever. So second time I came, I was like, I'm going to have to make sure people pay attention and all that and stuff. So I decided to practice some songs where I would sing and do this percussive stuff. And it worked out well, I think. I think that's when I realized that, I wasn't using it wasn't a fact of, I say it jokingly like that I want people to pay attention to me. But I also realized that I wasn't using my abilities to I wasn't maximizing my ability to sort of perform the best I could. And so adding that extra element, it kind of reminded me of like how I've been trying to grow and develop as an artist and as a musician itself. Like it's always about adding a new dimension to what you do. And of course, the more you get this diminishing returns of what more you can add into it and everything of the sort. But it's still an additional layer of something you can add into your work. And so, yeah, I think that's why it was a little necessary to kind of do that.
Right. For that matter, if I could come to your music now, your debut album was Orion.
Yeah.
Right. Right up till Moondance you did with Benny Dayal. Then the Book of I, right, which you were releasing singles during COVID itself, and then you finally released it as an album. And when I hear Orion, I can see a very rock-oriented arrangements, some nice drumming, tuck, kind of tracks. But then slowly we see the production moving to a pop direction, lot of space and reverb, a lot of that. So how did that transition happen? What has your musical, how has your musical DNA changed? The things you've been listening to for the change in your sound over the last 10 years, for that matter.
So every album I've done or something just teaches me something about the next thing I could do. So for example, like with Orion, it was a mix of what I could do on my own versus what I could do with a band. And when I was producing Orion, when I was working on the album itself, when I was working with the band, it was really easy to have your, like as you described, tuck 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 tuck, but to have this nice sort of heavy rock elements, because I love rock music. Like I grew up on it, and I was like, okay, what's the kind of rock music that I could make in the way I write and what I do and everything, and make it like cool guitar solos, cool nice riffs, and heavy songs without moving like that. But what I learned was, in that Orion itself, the songs I did alone, I started creating these solo songs with just layers of acoustic guitars. And so what that taught me was that I could arrange an entire song, top to bottom, with just the acoustic. Right. Percussion, shakers, melody, bass, all these harmonics and everything. I could build an entire song from just the guitar. And so it just created these unique sounding layers and pieces where the songs had their own life, and it felt very unique and different. So when I went on my second album, The Lost Cause, it was just like, how do I build on that skill further? By the time I reached the third one, I realized that I've been working in front of a computer, recording these things in my bedroom. I was like, I have to try and use a few more skills, like just add one or two more things. And once I realized that what I'm doing in the way I play does not have to exist in isolation. It has the ability to sort of flourish, and have a life of its own with all these other elements and everything of the sort. The whole idea was that how could I create something more epic every time I got the chance to? How did I get to create something that felt larger than life, and to sort of take into account the scale of the spectacle of whatever I was creating. And the more I understood that everything kind of is a matter of building on things, and giving an opportunity for your most emphatic moments to stand out and everything of the sort. It really helped me change the way I was thinking as a musician, because I transitioned from just thinking as a guitarist who sings to a songwriter, to a person who knows how to produce, to a person who knows how to assemble an idea, to build the confidence. In fact, if you were to present me with anything, I know how to take it from point A to Z. And that was really important for me to do. And that's what, say, the Book of I, the third album, taught me, that I have the ability to learn to produce ideas. I have the ability to kind of create things which I wasn't able to before. Right. And that's the thing, you have to evolve a little bit. You have to try and show a different side of yourself a little bit every time you do something. Otherwise, you're constantly regurgitating things that kind of helped you at one point in time and everything of the sort. And then once you revisit it, you're thinking why isn't it helping me again? Why don't I feel better about making this? And at some level, the desire to grow and improve, kind of creeps in. And so that's something that really, really motivated me to try and make sure that I had an ability to develop an identity every time I made something new.
Right. For that matter, now though you've been doing this song, write a song every day kind of challenge. Yeah. But I think back then when you write, you had something of a writer's block. Is that right? And then you finally came up with Write?
Yeah. So in fact, the whole idea of doing the song a day challenge was also to help me get out of a sense of writer's block and everything. But yeah, the first song that kind of helped me get out of that kind of rut of shitty songwriting or anything of the sort of writing really bad songs was this song, Right? And I decided to when I was sitting down to write the song or whatever, I wrote a song about writing songs, right? So I was like, yeah, I love writing songs. So why not just write a song about doing that? It's like Tenacious D's tribute to the greatest rock song of all time. I was like, yeah, this is just one of those things. And it really helped to kind of talk about my life's journey through the song. So I kind of speak about, maybe the various sceneries and that I've gotten to witness in my life, and and all of the pain and everything of the sort, and all the reasons why I write my music in one song. And it was just accidental. Like the whole thing developed from the chorus, which was like, maybe I don't wanna have another cut on my wrist. I don't wanna have another. It was just that movement.
Okay.
And so I thought, like, again, 10-second blocks. I was like, cool, what do I put before? What do I put after?
Okay.
And it took a while to get that, because it was a complex idea to put together for me. Because the song has a different verse, a different pre-chorus, a different chorus. Every part of the song is really different, but somehow it all works and comes together. And so that really, again, like all of these things, like it's like the Fermi paradox of music.
Okay.
I don't know how else to explain it. Like either you reach a wall and you've you've accomplished everything you could beforehand, or this is your first step, and though if you climb the wall, you have the opportunity to discover more.
A lot more. Right.
And so that is exactly what this song did for me. I actually climbed over that first step, and that's precisely it. Like
Right. And we're so glad that you did eventually. For that matter, I think one of your recent, you work in sessions and all of that. So, and you got Benny Dayal to work on your song on Moondance.
Yeah.
Right. And that song itself also, you have a story behind it about the nostalgia of tactile, physical music equipment you used to use. So, but the experience of working with Benny and then the crafting of that song.
No, the story is not that. It's based off the fact that, so in 2022, after filming the show, after filming My Kind of Country, I flew down to Austin, and I drove down with a friend of mine to Marfa, West Texas, and then just kind of drove around the town. And one day we were driving during the day and we found this observatory, and we said we'll come back at night.
Oh, okay.
So drove down at night.
Okay.
And we parked in the parking lot. It was empty. And my friend kept on threatening me, saying, oh, there's mountain lions everywhere. They're going to come and eat you. And so I didn't want to leave the car. So we just stared at the night sky, and it was magnificent. So many stars in the sky. And then after that, he got out of the car and started walking into the building. I was like, don't leave me, don't go. And I was like so scared. So then I chased after him. And then we stood in this amphitheater area and all that and stuff, like, wow, what is this? What's going on? Like, And then we look over the mountains and there's this like bright light coming through, and we're like, this must be the city or whatever. But it's getting brighter and brighter. I was like, Jesus Christ, are they holding a concert or something like that? And like 5 minutes later, the moon rises. It was pitch black. I couldn't see my fingers or anything. The moment the moon rises, I could see my fingertips, I could feel my fingerprints, I could see the end of the valley on the other side.
Wow.
And the whole experience was that, like, I had never seen a moon rise in my life, and that was the first one.
Oh,
and
okay.
That's how Moondance.
So this is what is Moondance.
Yeah. It was literally
right.
Moondance.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, I have a couple of songs which kind of which are so influenced by nature. There's one Cosmic Dawn, there's Afterglow, So this song Moondance in particular was that. And when I basically just wrote the song thinking, like, it was part of my Song a Day challenge in 2020. It was one of the ideas. That song was called Dancing in the Dark. That idea.
Right, dance, which your EP and
exactly, because the main chorus line of Moondance is
dancing in the dark.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Cool. You want to sing on Friday? But yeah, it was just one of those things where I was like, okay, if I were to get somebody to be on the song, who would it be? And I was like, I've met Benny Dayal a bunch of times before. He is amazing at what he does. He's a sweet guy. If I sent him the song, would he do it? I was like, I don't know. Let's just send it. I sent it to him. He sends it in 2 days. He does this, like, sends me a voice note and everything. It's like, that's exactly what you want, right? I was like, yeah, cool. Puts it on the song. Done. Nailed it.
Okay.
And it was just this simple, surreal experience of just like having this magical voice, on this record and everything of the sort, It's crazy. And like, I think it worked well because, like, he really got to use his range a lot, and it came out really well.
Right.
So, yeah,
especially the second half of that song is like, wow, such right.
Yeah, and his movements in his voice are like fantastic. And he's phenomenal. Like, he's truly phenomenal.
Now moving from R&B, pop, soul, and all, I mean, I think you have a lot of friends in rock and metal, for that matter. So to some nostalgia, I think one of the songs which I really enjoyed back when I first heard you was Ozone with Yatin.
Oh my God, yeah.
and sadly enough, we didn't see you in a lot more rock and metal tracks. That
My
was,
time will come, don't worry.
totally. For that matter, I think in one of your oldest videos you had. Oh, we don't see at least in whatever you've put out, you playing a lot of electric.
Yeah.
But you had this solo competition, 440 hertz or something. And did you finally get your dream PRS?
Nah, I didn't. I didn't at the time. But I remember the competition. It was a store in Delhi called 440 Hertz that was like, much like this space. Used to do workshops, used to do, sell guitars and all that stuff. It was a really cool store and everything. And yeah, so they decided to sort of like, to maybe garner some publicity to do this guitar solo competition. And it was a really easy way to get like a bunch of guitarists to post videos on Facebook and everything. And credit to them for doing something like that, because I got to know about all these amazing guitarists. The guy who eventually won, Bhanu Mendiratta, fantastic guitarist, But it was one of those things that like, okay, I want to see what I'm up against, when I'm doing this thing. So I did the solo and I just play it, and oh man, like I think I butchered it. I don't think I did a great job. But
no, I mean, you're a shred master. Somebody needs to go check that video. Like, yeah, you could be up in any band out there.
I mean, like I feel like I could be better. I've lost a lot of touch now because I play a lot more rhythm and everything. And I love like voicings, and I like things sound pretty. I don't know what happened to that throw, But it was definitely like I'm really glad I did it, because like I was doing things which were good, which felt good to play. But that's exactly the reason why I also like kind of switched over to a new place in music, because I was plateauing. I mean, I felt like that's as good as I was going to get on that. So the moment I moved to something else, I feel like I kept growing. So I'm happy I have that somewhere in my locker somewhere, and everything I have the capacity and the ability to use it.
And hopefully you'll go back and put it in your own music, sneaks of it.
I'm going to have to practice a lot. But yeah.
Right. For that matter, as a session player, how has it been working with big names like AR Rahman or Vishal Bharadwaj or Vijay Nambiar? Tenma, you worked with Tenma on Nachathiram Nagar Dheeraj. I was like, wow, shit. Dhruv is there on this. And that's a soundtrack I really love. How was that experience for that matter?
That was cool. Tenma actually just said like, he gave me some melodic things, but I was in charge of like literally creating the entire melodic and percussive kind of move behind it before it was then other produced elements were then added to it. But that was awesome. Like again, but most of these things like I built my space in a way where I can do all this work at home. I don't really have to go anywhere and do a lot of it. And I think like I never met Vishal Bharadwaj, but I did get to meet AR Rahman, and he took us for breakfast and all that the next morning and all that. It was really cool. But yeah, had some nice Sarvana Bhavan breakfast after playing on, what was that movie? I forgot.
Dil Bechara.
Dil Bechara, yes. Yeah, that's the movie. Sorry. Dil Bechara. After playing on Dil Bechara, and I played a small part on Blinded by the Light as well. But it was, that time was a little difficult because I was only there for a day and I had to fly back. And I hope I get to sit with him and work some more and everything of the sort. But again, like I think it's all about like when you're in that space, I think somebody puts their faith and confidence in knowing that you will achieve what they want for that. And so you have to kind of remove your ego and put it aside and kind of show up in a way that works for them. So that's probably the most important thing. And it's a job at the end of the day. AR Rahman is a musician. He's great. He's fantastic. But he's also a human being. He's just like me, who sits in a room and plays. And, he puts his ideas, he voices it down. He just does it better than most of us. And in a fantastical manner. And when you're part of that process, you see how he does it. You see the thought process. You see the generosity in how he kind of places you in the songs and how he kind of sees you there. And so all those things are really important. And and sometimes you're just a function of the music. You're there because it works, and sometimes you're an element that really speaks. So like say for Bijoy, he loves music. He's a massive lover of independent music. If you listen to all his films, he's got like artists from every corner of India and everything featuring on his soundtracks and everything. And so you have this cacophony of sounds from across the nation, from from all corners of these cities and everything, sort of, when he gives them a platform to be heard. And once you have that space to exist and kind of exist on your own identity, which is what I think Bijoy really likes. He likes to take the identity of somebody else and put it in his story, rather than try and have them shape something to put it in to something else, which is what most Bollywood directors would do. But yeah, at the end of the day, also sometimes it's just another thing you put on your CV that you did this and all that and stuff. But
you build up a nice CV for yourself. For that.
I hope so.
I
wouldn't waste if I didn't try.
Right. So if I could ask you some of your favorite independent indie musicians in India right now.
So I am a big fan of rock. So I loved Blackstrat Blues for a long time. And I'm like grateful that I even gotten Warren to play on one of my songs. And
Enigma.
And so they're some of my favorites. North Star is one of my favorite songs actually.
Right.
Because my name Dhruv means North Star.
Oh right. Nakshatram.
Yeah. I've always been a big fan of the F-16s, from Parvaz to when I Met Toast. They're good friends as well. They make good music. Yeah. There's a lot of people. I could just keep going on and listing and things like that.
Right. Yeah. So for that matter, what's next for Dhruv Visvanath?
Maybe I'll just keep this here because it'll keep me accountable. So I hope I get to work on it. Yeah, I actually have to get to work on producing my next few albums. So like I've got about 3 albums of work ready, which I have to finish and make. And I'm working with a lot of artists from across the world on some of my newer songs and everything. So I'm really looking forward to putting things together, hopefully coming back here saying like, hey, I have something.
Right. We're totally looking forward to that. Yeah. And for that matter, please like and subscribe to Sinusoidal Music if you'd like to see more such conversations with artists and musicians. And Dhruv, hope you enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, of course, man. It was great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Dhruv.
you.
Thank you.